Hello today, and we're going to do a video response today to Novabug. He did a video the other day saying, how long will physical game media last? I like to extend it to, also the music and video media as well. So, how long do we think it lasts? Well, a prime example. I don't know why I picked this. It was just the first tape I just randomly got. Right. I know. I've got. I've got my new job, and so I talked to a lot of younger people. I work with a lot of younger people. It's in their 20s. So obviously, I was born sort of in the mid-90s, so they came up with like the PlayStation era, but they probably won't be familiar with cassettes. Well, they probably will be, they've probably seen them before, but they probably have never experienced it. Obviously, this is what we used to load our games with back in the 1980s and 80s. I think these were invented in the late 60s, early 70s. Cassettes, the compact cassette as it was known, took over from the 8-track. Well, I'm not going into that, I ain't going that far, because I honestly only remember the 8-track when I was a little kid, and I don't remember it that well. So this is what I basically grew up with, was the cassette tape. So this is where we used to load our games, and and I'm already going off that fucking tangent. So, how long will physical media games? How long will physical media last? Well, this still works. I've tested a lot of my old Commodore 64 games. A majority of them, I'd say 95% of them still work. But really, it's how you look after it. How you look after it, or excuse me. Or how often you actually played the game. So obviously the more times you use it, it's likely to wear out more. But as I say, a lot of them games got played quite a lot back in the day, and they still work. As I say, 95% of them still work, which is, considering maybe they're coming up to 30 years old, so way over 20 years old, so 25 to 30 years old. That's still pretty good going. So something that is magnetic, a magnetic tape, and they do sort of supposed to wear out, but yeah, they still work, which is pretty good, really. And all right, I'm sure I've done this on another video, but I want any younger generation people out there. Do you know what a pen or a pencil and a cassette tape have in common? You can pause the video, no looking on Google. Right, just say for argument's sakes, I don't care, this is a crap game for the Amstrad and the Commodore 64. Right, let's say, annoyingly, your tape winds up in, we've all had it, we've all had a tape machine. This has happened to probably all of us, where the tape gets chewed up or something like that. This is where the pen comes in. It actually, oh, this one, damn it, take the lid off, and it actually fits, and you can wind it up like that. That's the connection. Obviously better with a pencil. For some reason it don't go in like that. You have to take the lid off, do it like that with a pen. But yeah, there you go. You learned something new. But it wouldn't matter, because probably none of you got tapes anyway, so it really doesn't really matter really. Still got a bit of a cough. But yeah. So there you go, there's your cassettes. And they are pretty good, they still work. How long will they work for? Well, I think they'll keep working if you store them in the correct temperature, don't ruin them. I reckon they'll last quite a long time. I think that'll work till I think until you pass away. I think this will last. I think it'll still work forever. That's what I'm saying. I think they'll work forever. You know, if you're not using them, they're not really degrading, are they? So that's cassettes. Now we come to the 90s for me. The 90s, because this is when I had my Commodore Amiga, and this is when floppy disks. This is a 3.5 inch. It's a 3. Is it? Yeah, 3.5 inch disc. This is what I used. Well, was used in PCs. You can still use them in PCs these days, but really no call for them because they can only hold up to 1.1 megabyte. Or if you had a double density disc, that can hold up to 2 megabytes. But what can you store? What have you got these days? What is a megabyte these days? Probably nothing. So these are pretty useless now. Yeah, but for the Amiga, this is what we used. So that was, yeah, as I say, once again, if you look after them, I think they'll still work. These are relative. I don't think these are that old. I think these are about 4 or 5 years old. I don't even know what. Oh, here we go. Windows 95 startup disk. Why would I want that for? I ain't used Windows 95 for years. So why would I want to use that? Oh look, Windows 98 startup disk. And the rest are blank. So there you go. I think that'll last. Now, what's wrong with this camera? Sorry, where's my camera? Here we go. Right, so now we're going slightly back to the 80s, late 80s, 90s. This is for the Commodore 64 actually. Robocop 2, but this ain't cassette. This is a cartridge, which a lot of, I would say the original game systems, like the second generations, like the Atari 2600 that was invented in the 70s, used cartridges. This is another media. As I say, I don't know how long these last for. I honestly only found out the other day when Novabug said these have internal batteries. I didn't know that. Obviously, for the latest, like the Super Nintendo time, perhaps they had to have a battery made because you stored data. You stored your saves on it. So I know with these, the Commodore 64, you didn't save nothing on these. So don't know if it's got a battery. I doubt it very much. But there you go. Here's your cartridge. It's the only cartridge I got, but yeah. So unfortunately, you don't see these no more. Really, no calls for them no more. Plus, they was expensive to make. So that's why everything went to optical media, like the CDs, DVDs, now Blu-ray. Yeah. As I say, I'm going to not just talk about gaming media, as I say, I'm going to talk about films as well. VHS. Jurassic Park 3. Right, if you've not ever seen one of these before, there you go. Look at the size of it. And these really did wear out. I mean, the more times you play, these wore out more than I would say cassette tapes, because, well, if you've ever opened up a video recorder, you'll see why. With these, you put it in, obviously it opens that flap and it reveals the tape. So what it does, it drags the tape out and wraps it around the silver drum, which is the video head. Very complex machines. If you open it up, you see all the mechanics working. It actually drags the tape. You see it actually. Two things like that go like that. Drags it around the drum, and it drags it also to the audio heads. Yeah, so these tend to wear out. Well, not too much, but obviously depending on the quality of the tape, of course, like everything. Probably plays well. Like, I don't know, I was never a fan really of the Jurassic Park films. yeah, so that's obviously we all know what CD is, so no point showing what CD and DVDs. You know what they are. Yeah, so it's very interesting also that vinyl, which is one of the oldest types of media to store music on, well, to play music rather, not to store, 90 years old, the record, the vinyl record, and it's making a comeback. Very surprised that people obviously like listening to records. I don't know why, of course. To me, I wouldn't own a record now. I've never owned a record, so well, I lie actually. I don't know why I own this. Someone got me this. I don't know why. Huey Green's Christmas Party. Why would someone want to buy me that? I don't even know who he is. So I do own a record. Yeah, but I ain't got a record player. Oh dear. So I don't ever get played. Really, I don't really want to play. I don't really know who he is, and you know it's going to be one of them, probably like Max Bygraves or something. You know, if you obviously if you're old like me, you're a gran, like my gran did. She listened to Max Bygraves record player, and there's me being a bastard used to pretend I was a DJ and used to scratch the records, Max Bygraves records. Some interesting sounds come out of it. Roll out the barrel. Barrel. Used to piss about with that. Shouldn't have done, but oh well. When you're kids, that's what you do, I suppose. Well, what I did anyway. But anyway, I'm going off at a tangent once again. Yeah. So, how long would how long would this last? Obviously, if you keep playing it, it's not going to last forever, but it ain't been played for a while, so if you don't play it, it'll probably last forever. And if you store it correctly or whatever, I think these have got a good chance of surviving. Yeah, you put them away, that'll last forever, I'd say. Yeah, but going back to the younger generation, as I say, I work with these days, is like they all you sort of like they're in their 20s, as I said. So me being an old bastard, if they're watching, if you're even watching the videos, I just want to show you something. So we're talking about computers. This is a computer from the 80s. Well, it was originally made in 1982, but obviously not. This is a newer model, but exactly the same thing. It's a Commodore 64, and they're mass produced. Obviously, they're all the same. Everyone that produces, they're all the same. You can't really do any upgrading to it internally. Few ports there, so you can just put expansion things in. There goes the cartridge slot. You put the cartridge in, so you can only play Commodore 64 games on it. Obviously, to load things into this, you've got the cassette part up there. But yeah, that's what we had back in the 1980s. But I've got this in. I owned one in the early 90s actually. But there you go. Something I did own in the 80s was the Amstrad CPC 464. It was another 8-bit computer. Obviously we talk in gigabytes now. So if I say this has got 64K, probably no one out there that's in their 20s probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. What the fuck's 64K? Anything to do with 4K? Or far from it. What 64K is 64 kilobytes of memory. Not gigabytes, not megabytes, kilobytes. So 1000 kilobytes is a megabyte. So 64K. Well, it was quite a, for 1984 when this came out. 64K was quite a lot of memory back then. So early days. Yeah, but it was a good computer. Here's your cassette deck. So that's how you load the game. And it'll take about 5 to 10 minutes to load, depending on the size of the game. Yeah, it was rather good back in the 80s. Because unlike now, as I'm really going off at a tangent, back in the 80s you had so many different computer systems. Obviously the three main ones were the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64 and the Amstrad CPC. But there was so many different ones, including game consoles like the Nintendo and the Sega Master System. But now, what do you get now? A PC, Sony PlayStation 4, Xbox One, a Nintendo Wii U. That's it, really. 4 major gaming systems there, just 4. You can't really class the Mac. Can't class the Mac. That's not really a gaming system, is it? So you've got your 4 different systems, and back in the 80s, even the 90s, you had loads of different systems competing for each other, which was a good thing, because you know, you play on an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4, the game is going to be pretty much identical, as well as the PC. All 3 of the formats are going to be near enough exactly the same. Like back in the 80s, you had the Amstrad, the Commodore 64, whatever, but all you know, if you bought one game, just say hard driving, which was an arcade game. Actually, it says Commodore 64 cassette there, but I actually know, I actually bought this. This is the actual Amstrad tape, which I copied the Commodore 64 version over, because I was no longer at an Amstrad, I had a Commodore 64 and I had a load of Amstrad games, so I actually copied the Commodore 64 version on it, and it was the worst version of the computers. The Amstrad version wasn't that much better, because it was basically probably a ZX Spectrum pool. It played the same, but the Commodore 64 version was absolute rubbish. But yeah, but the good thing was, all you'd know, if you bought a game, it would be different on either systems. It would be a different version, because they're basically coders will, someone might have programs on a Commodore 64, someone programs on an Amstrad, someone programmed on a Spectrum. Different programmers. Yeah, so that's a good thing about them back there. You had there was different systems, different games. Okay, great, gaming's moved on a long way. I mean, graphics and sound are absolutely fantastic these days. But is the game any good? I find gaming now quite boring. I find it quite boring for some reason. Not all games, but it's just, there's no real difference in gaming these days. Not a lot of difference. No, it's just, you played one, like Call of Duty, you played one, you played them all. It's not a lot of difference. But yeah, I'm going off at a fucking tangent now. So how long will physical gaming or any media last? My answer to that, I think they'll last forever. If you look after them, they'll last forever. Anyway, I'm going to finally end this video now, if you haven't switched off already. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Till next time, and goodbye.